You're watching Training Camp with Adam Marburger, exclusively on CBT News.
Adam Marburger here, your host of Training Camp, brought to you exclusively by CBT News. I have the honor and privilege to share some time today with a mentor of mine, somebody that I've looked up to for a really long time. When you think F&I in the automotive retail industry, there's only a few people you think of. And this guy right here is one of them. Joe St. John, welcome, my friend. I'm so glad you decided to spend a little time with me today, my brother.
Adam, bro, first off, I feel the exact same way about you. You're somebody I've looked up to for a long time. You're somebody I call when I have an idea or I need some insight. You're somebody I reach out to when I need to have my head put back together because shit's hard. And I want you to know how unbelievably excited I am to be here with you and how honored I am to get to spend some time talking about a business that I know how much we both love with somebody that I admire and respect like you, bro. So I am overwhelmed to be here. I can't wait to see what all we're going to talk about. And I'm super excited, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, here, we're going to talk about a lot of things. Let's just start right here where our friendship started, right? So you're this F&I thought leader. I'm this up and coming guy, that left retail. I'm a recovering F&I manager at this point. I'm trying to get into this space. And you realize I do jujitsu, you do jujitsu, and I think we just became like friends immediately, right? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, I literally think I saw a LinkedIn post and it was you competing. You were like a purple belt at the time, and I was like, dude, he does jujitsu. It's like Mitch was like, bro, how? And then we immediately became friends. This is how close we are. I don't just call you with business stuff. I'll call you with life. Sometimes I call you and I'm like, okay, listen, this open guard thing I'm doing is just not working. Tell me what I'm doing. You coach me in life, F&I, business, automotive, jujitsu. I think we immediately bond. There's something that you share with somebody that trains what we train that you immediately oh no, this guy knows it. He gets it. We
Amen.
Can talk real. We can be real. It's awesome, man.
Amen. So speaking of that, our show's Training Camp. And whenever I was talking to Jim about this show, I was like, I kind of want to personalize it because martial arts is the foundation that I built my life on. Yep. Every time I give a keynote speak, whether I'm at Agent Summit or anywhere I'm doing anything, I start by saying this: fights are not won in the cage. Fights are not won in the ring. You see these guys getting there and these gals getting their hands raised and we give them the glory, right? The reality is they paid the price 12 weeks prior to that fight. Fights are won in training camp, and this is training camp. And what I want to bring to dealers is insight, real know-how, and techniques and best practices to get to work because training's not something that we did, it's something that we do. So let me ask you this, because you're also a martial arts junkie like myself. How has martial arts helped you in F&I? What have you taken from your background as a martial artist, and how's that helped you help dealers today?
Man, I think that there's a handful of things that are just so parallel between the two, right? I would say that there's a handful of things that for me personally have been wildly transformative in the way that I think about what we do in a dealership. And so I'm going to go through probably 2 or 3 of them that just really are out there for me. The first one is humility and realizing that there's levels to the game, right? You don't just start jujitsu and all of a sudden become a black belt. And I think sometimes we expect people in automotive to immediately rise to this level for just now that we gave them an office and a menu and we expect them to all of a sudden just become something. And I think in jujitsu, what you learn very quickly is that training camp of 12 weeks isn't just 12 weeks. It is 12 weeks of living, breathing, eating, sleeping, everything you're doing, you're working in preparation for this moment. And I think of an F&I turn or closing a car deal on the showroom or a test drive or anything that happens in that. Those are the moments. And a lot of people, they're just going to the fight and going to the fight and going to the fight. And there's not a lot of time being spent in really honing and sharpening that craft. And you get that through those reps and the way that you do it. Secondly, and when I say humility, it's because I think in the dealership, you become the biggest play, you become the guy in your store. And I think that you probably experienced this in the same way I experienced it. Like I thought I was the greatest car salesperson that had ever lived, right? Like I thought I was the best F&I producer that had ever spun deals ever. I was the best director. And then when you get out in the market, you meet people and you go, wow, like I didn't even know that existed, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's a kid in Southern California who's 21 years old who sold 42 cars last month. And he's,
Wow.
brand new in this business. And you see that like that's like a pit, like that's like that to me. Like, so I think that the humility to realize that I'm constantly a work in progress. And no matter how much I know about F&I, there's so much to know out there that I'm always learning and absorbing new information and new techniques and new ways of like framing things, new ways of presenting an idea and a concept that might make a light bulb go off for somebody. And so for me, I think the idea of this is a long game. And so humility and patience, I think, go really, really, really hand in hand. And so I think also in our business, you have people that show up and they want to be a black belt tomorrow. And no matter how much we want to like help you, no matter how much innate talent you naturally have, it takes time to get to that level. It takes learning the nuances. Jiu-jitsu, just like F&I, the difference in this grip and this grip can make the difference in whether or not my submission actually works. And it's just the difference in saying, let me ask you this versus let me just tell you something is the difference between whether or not that customer comes over to my point of view and goes, oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And so I think that in both of those, it's the details, and those details are developed over time with consistency and training. And so I think that that's for me. The second part that I would anchor that to is in jiu-jitsu, you don't just show up and start doing stuff. You have people that are masters that are teaching you the nuances and those details and helping you in those moments to adjust, right? For those of you that don't train, you roll live rounds. I would say that Adam is one of two people in the automotive industry that's tried to choke me. And so like you literally slap hands and now it's time to kill each other. And in those moments, great coaches like Adam are walking around the room and going, hey, move your hand over here. Okay. And then it works. And you go, oh shit, that just worked. Like it just unlocked it. And so I think in jiu-jitsu, there is a idea of respect for a knowledge base that is exercised over years and years of development and how that knowledge base can be shared with other people to make them infinitely better at what they're doing in that preparation and in that moment. So in that like cornering of that fight, if you watch any major UFC fight, if you watch a jiu-jitsu tournament, there is somebody sitting there watching what's happening, giving real-time feedback and adjustments. And all of that really matters. And I think in our business, a lot of us come up in a way that it's all about what we're able to do. And so you build this kind of egoic shell of like, no, I'm the best. And I think that when that humility finally softens that shell up and you go, look, there's a lot, like I'm good, but I can get better.
Amen.
And then you start listening to people like you who have thousands and thousands of reps and at-bats doing F&I turns. You have thousands and thousands of performances where you've tweaked these things. You could help me get better at F&I almost immediately by listening to what I'm doing and positioning me and sharing those things. Same way with me, right? I spent 15 years of my life in a dealership, taking turns and working car deals. And when I'm at a dealership now, I'm in thousands of dealerships, spending time at stores I've never been in, working deals and like being on the floor and working at the desk. You start to pick things up, and that knowledge share is something that I think that we can take from martial arts and share it with the industry. And I think what's made me, I would say, really proud of our friendship. I'm very proud that you consider me a friend. What's made me proud of that is I think you're one of the voices I saw in this business. Every time I've seen you speak, you always talk about being a work in progress. You always talk about like, if you think I'm good now, just wait, because I'm getting better every single day. And I think the more that we can permeate that in the industry, the better this whole business is going to be. And I truly believe a rising tide lifts all ships.
Amen.
And I'm really, really focused on, at least in my own way of operating in this business, trying to emulate that in every store that I'm in, trying to share like very lovingly what I've gathered from 25 years of being in this business with people that are up and comers, that are the blue belt that thinks they're a brown belt.
It's about helping the younger generation. And Joe, you said a couple of key things here. A couple of key things. Number one, we have to humble ourselves. Like we think we know it all. until we go up against somebody who's bigger, better, badder, or somebody who's more seasoned than us. And the second piece to what you said is what I really love is there's just different levels. You know, I played victim. I'm still in recovery. I'm a recovering F&I manager, right? So I did it my whole life. That's all I've ever done. I've delivered, I don't know, I think we've talked, I've done over 20,000 retail transactions, okay? So it's my whole existence. But leaving the four walls of my store, traveling the country like you realize, I'm not the best. Are you kidding me? I never was the best. Now I'm on a mission to become a better version of myself daily, but most importantly, to help the younger generation become a better version also. So it's not about us, it's about them. Hey, I got to go into this because this is something important to me. You're like rolling around with your dude. Like, what are you doing? Like I'm seeing you on the LinkedIn and the Facebooks. You're not on Facebook, on maybe the Instagrams. You're everywhere on social, and you're traveling with family. Like, what is this thing you're doing with your family? And you're going into dealerships. Like, what is it, first of all? And who came up with this idea? What are you trying to accomplish with this? I need to know.
Yeah, so bro, I'm in Philadelphia. I got my Pete Rose Phillies jersey on. I'm at a dealership right now. You know, about a year ago, well, at AutoFi, dealers keep coming to us and forever said, look, we just want to be able to sell cars faster. Like, we want to be able to sell cars faster. And me being me, the only thing I could do is to start where it happens, which is selling cars. And I went out in the market and I started selling cars at dealerships all over the country. Like, Adam, you saw me with a mustache. It's because I shaved my beard because I didn't want them to recognize me. And I got 3 golf shirts and a new employee pack, and I started taking ups and working car deals. And what I realized very quickly is that selling cars today, just like in 1998 when I started, is complicated, it's slow, and it's ugly. And what I wanted to do was build a way to make it simple, make it fast, and make it beautiful. And we started by just solving one little thing at a time until we got to this point where the hypothesis that we had, right? If you could, time kills deals, time kills growth. Like, time is the enemy. If we could streamline things in a really fast way where you get the customer to say yes immediately when their buying temperature is the highest, right when they get back from the test drive. Bro, like, you know this, car deals, dude, dealerships are the same. Like, nothing happens like every hour on the schedule. It's like nothing for 4 hours, and then you got 10 deals working, and it's chaos. Yeah, it's boiler room. And in that, everything slows down for that one salesperson that's third in line to get their pencil. And if we could make it where I could get a pencil in front of the customer the moment they got back from a test drive, when their buying temperature was the highest, my closing rates would go up and my gross per unit would go up in both front end and F&I because it's all connected. And so we started building technology to really deliver against that. And then we put it in 100 stores, every kind of store. I'm talking from like Highline to Mitsubishi, like everything, to see where we would get results and tweak things and come up with it. And everywhere we went, the results spoke for themselves. You would see, there's 2 levers in variable ops to drive up profitability, right? PVR, so the more I can make per car. And the second one that really rolls down in the financial statement is how many units per salesperson. So if I can go from 10 to 15 and I do 150 cars a month at a domestic store, that's basically $500,000 a year in net, right? That goes into the dealer's pocket. If I go from 10 to 20, that's basically 1.2, 1.3 million in net. And so for us, what we saw was not only this PVR lift, we would see this operational lift for salespeople where, I get a superstore, it's up 50% in units per salesperson. Like, think about that. And then we're seeing this lift in F&I, no matter how they're doing F&I, simply by streamlining and speeding up that front end process. So by reducing the deal fatigue of the grind out there and trying to close that gap to go create another gap to close, if we could just close immediately, it made F&I so much easier. And so we started expanding this. We launched it in ADA. We're signing up dealers. And what I realized very quickly, for me, was the best way to get dealers to understand what this means, because it feels complex, it feels scary, was to actually just go visit dealers. And you know me, I got 6 kids under 10 because I make good decisions. I have a big family. I'm all about family for me. And I was like, okay, I would do this, but I'm not going to leave my kids at home all summer without me. And so AutoFi was like, hey, what if we just made the route out and you could drive it in the Sprinter van and we give you Airbnbs everywhere you went and you could get up in the morning and just go visit dealers all day. And I was like, that would be amazing. And so we haven't been home since May. We won't be home until August. And we've been from Green Bay, Chicago, through like Pittsburgh to New York and Philly and DC. We're going to Tampa next week. And every day, all day, what I'm doing is meeting with dealers to kind of share with them what this can look like. And it's not that we're going to define from this is what you need to do. But look, like no matter how you want to do it, let me show you how you can literally streamline this and trim things up. And so we've been out here all day, every day for weeks. My family's here in Philly. We're staying off South Street, down on Front Street. Like we walked to Independence Hall last night after dinner, and it's been amazing.
Did you get a cheesesteak? Hey, did you get a cheesesteak for the family?
We're going to Jim's tomorrow, bro.
Okay.
On the South Street. That's the one. Yeah. And so for me, I think it's been really great being out here and really sharing that with dealers. And it's really fun to see really intelligent dealers like light up, like dealers that are like real, and they're like, oh, I get this. And so for me, getting to go do that has been, bro, like it's been unbelievably fun.
It's inspiring to see that you incorporated the whole family too. So it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to take a stand and refuse to not be with my kids. I'm just going to take them with me. I think that is really, really cool. You brought up something that's kind of I guess we could say it's a pain point. It's speed of transaction. Okay, a lot of dealers. I'm also out in the market, and I hear from dealers. Dealers want a couple of things. They want more profit per transaction. They want more product penetration, and they want speed of transaction to increase. They want the customer in and out quicker.
Yes.
What's realistic, man? Like, what's realistic? Like, I know it's hard because there's different markets.
Yes.
But let's speak broad. What is a realistic expectation? I'm the customer. I say yes. I just signed up the paperwork. How long should I be in and out of finance? Signed up on my deal. When should I be leaving the dealership?
So Adam, I'm gonna kind of challenge this assumption in a little bit of a different way.
Okay.
Because of the scope of the dealers I'm in, I'm really seeing it across a really broad spectrum. And so if you had a time machine and went back to Joe in 2013 when I was training F&I managers after I left my job as a GM, and you told me that what I'm about to share with you of what I'm seeing out there was possible, I would have told you you've lost your mind. There's no way. And so I'm seeing this wide spectrum of dealers with AutoFi specifically, where on one end you have dealers that have a Subaru store, a Kia store, and a Buick GMC store with shared services model of F&I managers, where I'm a primary F&I manager for GMC, but if Subaru's backed up, I'm over there taking a turn. And so they share their F&I managers across the pool. They're so old school, they don't even use a menu. Like it's all a handwritten process. But to them, it's if I can close the car deal out front in 15 to 20 minutes, which is what they're doing now. So from test drive to F&I in about 15 to 20 minutes, then in F&I can take however long I want, right? Like if I want an hour and a half in F&I, customer's not upset because they just I'm the person that's kind of really selling them anything. On the other end of that spectrum, I got stores like Hello Automotive out in California, where you've got a group of basically Gen Zers that were Starbucks baristas and Amazon warehouse employees, and there isn't a traditional F&I office at all. You've got a group of managers that were all F&I managers that are literally early manager intervention and working with the customers, and they're running real F&I numbers, and they're doing their entire transaction on the showroom in about 28 minutes, including the F&I menu presentation and the product attachment. And so I'm seeing this across a wide spectrum, and I think that the real question is not the time as a total number. It's how much wasted time is the customer experiencing. And what I mean by that is if a customer is sitting in front of you, Einstein said it best. He was asked, what is the theory of relativity? And he says, time is relative. They said, okay, what does that mean? He goes, well, I'll explain it simply. If you put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. If you're sitting with a beautiful woman for an hour, it feels like a minute. And that is, I think, the way of describing that there's this relative perception of what time is. If I'm engaging in something that I'm enjoying, that feels good, and I'm learning, and I'm that doesn't feel like, if I'm sitting on a showroom for an hour and a half to wait for somebody to build a menu and to put some stuff together to then come put the thumb screws to me, that's where time really hurts us. And in a car deal, it's not the back and forth negotiation up front that's creating all the time. I'll give you a perfect example. I was selling a CX-30 2019 to a young lady and her father, and her mother. The young lady just graduated from college. She was getting ready to start her job. She had her paperwork. She had an offer. She had her first paycheck. It was all good. I sit down with the customer with the worksheet that the salesperson had on paper. And I said, okay, with 10% down at 60 months, you're at a 685 payment. Is that what you would like to do? And I just shut up and look at her. She goes, oh, well, I was going to put 5 grand down. What would it be with 5 grand down? Hang on, I'll be right back. And I get up and I walk 25 yards. The manager that started my deal isn't there. I go to the next manager. They have no idea what's going on. They have to click through the tabs. 10 minutes later, I'm walking back out with a payment that's 5 grand lower. Sit down. Okay, here, 5 grand down. You're now at a 589 payment. Oh, well, could I do 72 months? That's what I did on my last one. Even though I like to pay it off a little bit early, it just makes me feel better. Okay, I'll be right back. I go back to this. Now that manager's gone. Gabby just showed up for her shift because it's 11. Now the GM walks up. They're talking. Now I'm like, hey, I got a deal. Somebody help me out here. They give me the paperwork. I go back out there. Now I've got a third chair pulled up and a dude sitting there. It's her uncle. And he's like, why are you buying a used one? The payment's higher on that than the new one I leased for your cousin. Why don't you just lease a new one? And so in these deals, it's all of these little blocks of like time that's unnecessarily wasted, that if you could compress all of that down, what you end up with is that whole process takes 10, 20 minutes. And that's what I think is, so imagine as an F&I, so imagine for a moment, you're back in the box tomorrow, right? And you've got 2 customers. One was out there for an hour and a half having like the grind session, and one said yes after about 10 minutes. Which one are you going to run bigger numbers on?
Yeah, I want the yes. Give me that one.
Okay, so I think when I think about a lot of the problem in the, not problem, one of the challenges in the F&I industry is that everybody's myopically focused on the F&I manager's performance. And I think that we have to keep doing that. Like we have to optimize F&I manager performance. But like, there's all this stuff that happens before it ever gets to that point that impacts the attitude, the like personality, the temperature, everything about that customer, that if we can clean up a bunch of that, what you end up with is an F&I turn that feels great.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing it done where I did F&I training yesterday morning for a dealer group in on Long Island. It's not in Long Island, it's on Long Island. And they have salespeople that are pitching F&I. But I'm not training them like I would have trained an F&I manager, right? I'm training them that the way that everything in the dealership is focused on customer experience. If you truly are committed to customer experience, are you only committed to customer experience when they buy the car or when they own the car? I'm like, oh, when they own the car. Okay, well, how do you ensure that they have the experience that they want, right? What does a customer want? They want the highest use and enjoyment, the least amount of aggravation, lowest overall cost. How do you ensure that that's what they actually get? And they're like, okay, well, the only way you can is the platinum package. It's the only way. And so I think that like in the world that I'm in right now, there's a couple of things that we can do to, I think, really drive up F&I production. Man, make the front half of the car deal not suck. Like, let's be clear, make it like fast and seamless and pretty and easy and get them through the yeses. And then make sure that we don't then leave them out there for 2 hours while we wait for me to like build my menu one at a time. And I think that's where for me. And so I think, I mean, the average right now is 172 minutes. That's almost 3.5 hours. Like it's crazy. It's 3 hours, right? That's too long.
Yeah.
What do I think a real time frame is? Man, front half of a car deal, bro, 20 minutes. AutoFi's averaging like 28 minutes right now, start to finish, closing the deal on AutoFi. Back, if that's what the front end looks like, then do another 30, 45 minutes on the back end and let's go. Like our car deal.
So an hour's realistic. Yeah. So I mean, and I think too, realistically from a retail customer standpoint, I mean, I think customers expect to spend at least an hour. They just don't want to spend 5 hours. Another thing, they don't want to be left in the dark. You know, there's nothing worse, and maybe you know what happens here, but sometimes a salesperson closes a deal, they disappear. I don't know where they go. They go to this place, like they're in a lounge somewhere, drinking whiskey, smoking cigars. I have no clue where they go, but they go somewhere. And then they tell the customer sometimes, hey, finance, you know, Joe St. John, our finance manager, he'll be with you in 5 minutes. Well, now the deal's not written up correctly, and you're 30 minutes, and now you're a liar, and the customer's mad. It's the communication too. I want to say this to you. For the sake of time, I got time to ask you one more question here. First of all, I can't thank you enough for just spending. You and I can nerd out for 11 hours. This could be an 11-hour series. You and I could just talk about F&I.
Yes.
The one thing I want you to share with the industry, if you would. So for the dealers listening, the GMs listening, the finance directors listening, what is one of the common setbacks or mistakes you're seeing F&I professionals make? Just ponder on this for a minute. What is something that comes to light that's something that's easily fixable that you see us doing wrong in the industry from an F&I standpoint? What is a common mistake that we make as F&I managers that we can fix pretty easily?
I think this is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And
Bring
I'm
it. Hey, training camp, we don't have feelings. We're here to make, we demand results, and we're here to get a little bit better. So feelings don't exist in this environment.
I would say the biggest mistake that F&I managers make is letting their ego grow out of control very rapidly. And what I mean by that is I made that mistake, right? When I became an F&I manager, I was the sales manager that salespeople loved. And then I became an F&I manager, and I was the F&I manager that they hated. And for me, I think that if I had it to do over again, and I was giving advice to 24-year-old Joe who was becoming an F&I manager, I would tell him the more the salespeople love you and see you as somebody that helps them, the more likely they are to set you up and not disappear on that customer because Joe's getting that turn. And I think that we become this ivory tower, isolated, like I'm a finance manager. And the reality is the second that starts to creep in, the more that we detach ourselves from the rest of the organization, the more that we create our own little ivory tower silo, the faster we start to lose our ability to influence the outcomes that we're in charge of. And what I mean by that is, man, this is a little bit broad and I'll wrap it up. But bro, who becomes finance managers? They're the best salespeople. And what I think we got to do is, as an industry, stop locking them in a broom closet in the back of the dealership and putting customers in front of them one at a time. I want them involved in teaching salespeople how to close. I want them involved in, in the at your gym. You're teaching class. I was at your gym, right? You're teaching class, but then you got a layer of brown belts and purple belts that are rolling with white belts, teaching them, working the techniques with them. Mm-hmm. That's who F&I has to be.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing that, we're doing our dealership a disservice. We're doing the F&I manager a disservice, because that's how you learn leadership. And then we're really doing a disservice to our crop of potential future, all-stars. And for me, if there was one thing I would be able to wave a wand and fix, that's what it would be.
I love it. I love it. And one thing too is it also interrupts the buying experience for the customer too when those things happen. And that's, in my opinion, the most important thing. Joe, as always, you always bring so much insight, brother. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, A, for our friendship, but B, just for taking the time. I know how nuts your schedule is because I'm seeing it. Thank you, brother. God bless you. Thank you so much for coming in today. And for the viewers watching here in training camp, we can't thank you enough. Stay tuned here exclusively on CBT News.
Thanks for watching Training Camp with Adam Marburger, exclusively on CBT News.